You know, the problem with August as it rolls around is, it's one thing if we're not getting our chores done, we're not making sure that we're keeping up on our chore list every month, and we're not prepared that way. But I think a lot of times we go into the season and we're just woefully prepared mentally, but in even just our whole focus can be misguided. We're pulling things together at the last minute. You can pull a lot together. If you're not shooting well, you can just shoot every day now until November. You're going to do pretty well. You'll get a good handle on your bow. If you don't have food plots planted, if you don't have the right amount of scouting taking place, you can always scout from the couch. You can always do it-yourself. Just scout from the couch, scout from your kitchen table, and go out and have a great hunt. Dylan did that last year in South Dakota. Going in by boat, going into an area he'd never been to, and he was successful. And that can be done, and it doesn't take a lot of time. And so I think a lot of times we try to pull so many things together at the last minute that we're not really focused on, number one, are you a killer? And what I mean by that is there are a lot of great hunters that hunt private land that don't do a thing. They go in and they hunt a good funnel. They have a good plan based on the property. Maybe it's a property where the deer come back to in the morning hours. They have a long route to get there, and they're waiting at the backside of a bedding with a good wind for those deer to come right in their lap. Maybe it's a property that has good food source, and so they're waiting. They're just being smart. They're not forcing the issue going in the morning. They don't have food plots planted. They don't have mock scrapes. They don't have water holes, but they're just simply hunting deer on the way to that travel pattern towards feed in the evening. No different than if you're hunting public land. You're making sure that you're making smart decisions. This is a food source stand, so we hunt it in the evening. This is a bedding location stand, so we hunt it in the morning, unless you're hunting in the afternoon as those deer exit that bedding. But you're just making good plans. Unfortunately, a lot of us get to the end of this time frame right before the season buildup, or really explodes into bow hunting season, and we're looking at, boy, we need that bow, we need those arrows, we need the broadhead, we need that scent contraption machine, we need those new binoculars, we need those new boots, and hey, I'm all for getting new stuff, but they're not going to make up for a lack of being a true killer and a true hunter when you go out in the woods and really focusing on the basics, because there's a lot of people that do really well with limited equipment. They're not bringing a whole backpack out in the woods, everything of gear when they go out into the woods. They're just hunting smart, and that boils down to making sure your stand location is downwind of the deer. The best form of scent control, I say it all the time, is stand location. Where your stand location's set, where you predetermine deer traveling from here to here, you stay on the downwind edge of that, hunt a funnel, hunt some type of habitat constriction, and you're going to find some good luck. And you're really not using a lot of gadgets or gear. You're just being smart and making smart decisions. And one of those smartest decisions that I think you can make is just simply hunting the weather. That's why I have my all-weather whitetails book. That's why I helped HuntWise develop their HuntCast for actually picking out those best days of weather where you can expect deer movement. It's really, really critical. I actually have a link in every description towards that. They can go check out, but you can check out years and years of videos and rut forecast, timing articles that I used to write back in the day, and making prediction of when you should go out in the woods based on the weather, because always look at the extreme of everything. The weather can guide you to success, nothing else will. Meaning that if you have a blizzard and 50-mile-an-hour winds, deer aren't going to move, obviously. If it's 90 degrees and very hot and windy and dry, deer probably aren't going to move. But when they experience major changes, when there's a downturn in the temperature, the bottom drops out on temperature, you had major weather taking place right before that, and there's a calming now, meaning that the winds have subsided. They might be half what they are. Doesn't mean there's no wind. The rain, the snow, the sleet, the thunder, lightning, the heavy blizzard is gone. Deer are going to put the feed back on. They're going to move. And those are the things you can hang on your hat on just by being a smart hunter, not the gadgets and gear and all those trinkets we like to buy when it gets to deer season. Number two, big failure, mixing brassica and grains. Grains being rye, oats, and wheat. They need to be planted about 5 to 6 weeks apart. We learned this, folks, 20 to 25 years ago, meaning that when you mix the two, sounds like it'd be perfect. Call them kitchen sink blends. The oats, rye, wheat destroy the growth of peas, beans, brassica. You can top dress cereal grains over clover, but that's later plantings that you're looking for clover for the following year just to become established. But you still have to kill out the grains in the spring, because guess what they're going to do? They'll outcompete the clover. They'll shade it out and you'll get limited growth. You have to eventually cut the rye, cut the weed out, kill it out so that that clover can flourish. And that's talking about the next year. Let alone when you plant it in early August. I can't tell you how many brassica blends out there, how many kitchen sinks, how many throw and grow blends have rye, oats, or wheat in them paired with radish, rape, or turnip, let alone kale or canola. All brassica family. You don't put those two together. It just severely. I saw a post last year from someone on Instagram, someone who is in the deer circles with a national deer organization, and they were looking at showing rye that had been crimped down or smashed down, and there's brassica growing up within that rye. Talking about this is great cover crop. It's going to grow well. Look at how well it's doing. Aided in germination. But then they'll show the pictures 4 or 5 weeks later when the brassica was stunted and down to nothing, and it was a waste of complete seed and effort because the rye took it over. And now the rye, because it was in early August in a Midwestern state, is actually planted too early, and it wasn't a deer tract, and it was nothing going into the fall. That's not a success. That's a huge failure. And we even have seed mixes nowadays that have them both in the same blend, and it couldn't be worse. You've already failed with your food plot before you even throw it on the ground. So be very wary of those companies that do that. That's why you'll see in our blends right here, fall power greens, no cereal grains in, because we have tilled radish, peas, and buckwheat. I don't want it to compete with that, let alone our brassica blends with pure brassica, nor Dorfrex rape. Nothing like sugar beets that need to be planted 5-6 weeks before all the other brassicas. We don't put it in the mix just so you can have a buzzword on the back. We have quality blends that we pay for. We are going to get those prices down for next year, so I appreciate all those that supported us this year, because the prices are very high, and we're going to drastically drop those for next year. You can bet on it. Number 3, clustered plans. What do I mean by that? It's pretty easy to get overly excited about, we're going to hunt South Dakota this year, Nebraska, Ohio. We're going to step on all these public land spots, and we're going to shoot big bucks in every state, and we're going to fill our schedule, and we're going to do that. Folks, try doing it on 1 or 2 states consistently first before you branch out into all these other states. I'm not saying it's not a good time going out and do that, but you'll learn more by really honing in on one state, one area, becoming intimately familiar with it, and experiencing success in that area on a consistent basis. Then those tactics and principles you learn there, you can apply to other locations if you're going into it with an open mind. But we can become so excited with our deer plans that by the middle of the season we're burned out. We don't have a deer. We have a lot of unfilled tags. We didn't have a lot of fun. And while it looks good on TV, that doesn't really translate into the deer world. That's why for me, we have enough tags in Wisconsin, Minnesota that I don't fill. You know, I fill 2 or 3 every single year of target bucks, but I want to really work on those 2 states. I enjoy it. And then I might go to a public land hunt in Pennsylvania, Michigan, sometimes both. Been in Ohio for 7-8 years in the past. And I love hunting public land every year, which is what I do. But I'm focusing on these 2 primary states, and then I'm going out and having some fun on public land too. And I'm not filling my schedule so much that I'd actually, you know, kind of that jack of all trades, master of none. That's what happens sometimes when you over cluster your hunting schedule and you really fail at actually learning anything, because you're not really immersing yourself into the hunt. You're just trying to gloss it over. And just some advice. You know, you can do what you want. You know, all that can be a lot of fun, but I think you'll burn out jobs, family, friends a lot more doing that, and really come away with it not being a better hunter, even though you spend a lot of days in the field, let alone filling tags. Number 4, this is a big one. So many people are overbowed going into the season, meaning you worked all summer to get your bow to where you feel comfortable shooting 70 pounds, probably because you have some really heavy arrows, some heavy broadheads. You're trying to flatten that trajectory, because trajectory kills, no different than penetration, having a quiet bow, having a quiet setup. But when it comes to being overbowed, there's a lot of people that go into the late season or even November on a cold front morning that can't pull their bows back, or they can't do it without sky drying and making a lot of movement. Folks, if you can't hold your bow, vertical position, release on the string right in front of your face, and pull straight back at that deer, then you're at a huge disadvantage. Because when you do this, a lot of mature bucks just saw you. See, a lot of people don't get the chance to watch 4 or 5 5-year-old bucks and draw on them consistently every single year for decades to learn this. But when that moment of truth arrives, maybe you're lucky out there. You can look at all those mature bucks every single year. You can pull your bow back and you can learn these things on your own. But I'm here to tell you, if you're going like this and you're making a lot of movement to pull back, you just spooked a lot of mature bucks. We're not talking just 1 in 100, 1 in 50, 1 in 20. Talking probably 1 in 5. You just can't afford to make those kind of mistakes. You have to be able to look at that deer when he's looking away from you, when he passes by a tree. You need to pull straight back. And you need to do so without much movement, because they'll pick you out. Those young bucks, those does, I refer to it as, Dylan and I talked about this, we came up with this a while back, where deer have, obviously, they're looking at sight, sound, and scent that spooks them. A fawn, a lot of times, a young deer, really young deer, they're a 3-sense animal. What I mean by that is they see you, then they want to hear you and smell you in order to spook. How many times have you seen a mature doe just stand there and stomp, look at you? She picked you out because you moved in some way. And then she circles downwind eventually and gets your wind. That's a 2-sense animal. A lot of mature does, very smart, very wise, but many of them are 2-sense, no matter what their age. Animals, a mature buck is a 1-sense animal. He needs to hear you, smell you, see you, he's gone. So when you make a little bit of movement, he's not going to circle around downwind and give you a shot. When he hears you, he's not going to wait around to see you. He's gone. And so when you're overbowed and you're moving around a lot, when you have to stand up in your stand, it's the same thing. When a deer comes in, if you're already standing, you're moving around a little bit and he picks out that movement and he is gone. Just take it for someone that learned the hard way years ago. It doesn't take much to spook them and becoming overbowed, let alone moving around a little bit in the stand, which is what that ultimately is, can really take away your success rate. And so kind of learn from that. It's almost like one of the things you probably should do is build up to 70 pounds in your practice and then back off to 63, 65, 60 during the hunting season. Enjoy the hunt and know that you can actually pull back and make a shot when the moment of truth arrives, because making the shot shouldn't be the hard part. Getting that buck in front of you should be the hard part. Making the shot should be easy, and not spooking them should be the easy part with proper planning. Number 5, not planning for the shift. You've watched these bucks all summer. It's in August. You're full of hope. We talk about this. We've talked about for the last couple months on our monthly deer fails, is that if you haven't prepared where they're at in October, November, and you're basing all your plans on where they're at in June, July, August, September, that's why scientific census models that have you take census in August and September are huge failures. Can you mention that? Because that represents a pivot point. Your property and the location you get is either going to hold more deer or fewer deer as the season progresses. Typically not the same amount unless you're in limited situations, ag areas where you have only cover, where cover is a premium. Some of those locations, there's always an exception to the rule. But 90% of the time, whatever you see in August, September is not going to be there in October, good or bad. You don't see a lot in August, September, that's better than seeing a lot, typically in most any situation, because a mature buck has 2 different habitats. Bucks in general have 2 different habitats from summer to fall. If you're not planning for that, meaning you're either not looking for fall habitat and fall food for that time of the year, and that's what's cool about public land. Because public land, there's always a food source of the moment that you're looking for, whether it's a clear cut, white oak acorns are dropping early, red oak acorns are dropping later, maybe some apple trees that are hidden. They're hitting in December along with a clear cut, heavy stem count regeneration. But there's always a food source of the moment on public land you can go find. And if you're really putting your time in, you know where those are at, you can base your hunt off it. Private land though, if you haven't provided that food or you don't have the ability to find someone else's private land and be able to hunt on it and have permission that has a food source, then you're done. And so you really need to plan for that shift, plan for where that food's not only going to be in October, but also November, December. You're hunting unpressured food, because an unpressured food source can turn into a nocturnal food source that's rarely visited by a mature buck in just a matter of a few hours in a haphazard sit. So really plan for food sources and cover where deer are going to be in October, November, December, hopefully in the same spot if you're lucky. And you've planned for that diversity and variety in your location, and you've followed the tips and tactics that we share on this channel. But really make sure you're planning for that shift, not only for the deer to leave, but where they're going to. Hopefully they're on your land, you made that preparation, or in your spots on public land where you pre-scouted. And these are some fails we can apply to a lot of different months, but boy, when it gets into August, like we're in our August deer chores, it's really critical. It's down to the crunch time right now. And you can't afford to make mistakes. A lot of people have made mistakes before the deer season even has begun. And you're doomed for failure before the season even begins. And I want to make sure that you're not, that you find success and let other people's failures guide you to success this fall. That's often the best way to learn and why we keep coming out with these kind of videos. And I hope you're on the right track for a successful hunt this fall. Folks, I want to make sure you check out my web class video series, whether it's how to design your food plot program or how to design your property in general. And we have a new one coming out that'll be how to hunt the rut. But these bucks back here are a testament. Some of these bucks go back to 93. They're even in different states. I urge you to check out those web classes so that you can help yourself, help your land, help your hunt. The link is in the description. And also for those that have tried them out, I encourage you to offer some feedback in the comments below. Thank you.